Oh, shoot.
Okay. So, welcome to the last session of our color in the landscape. I know we're working on a sky today, but those colorful skies offer a lot of color reflected into the landscape. We are kind of more going to focus on the clouds itself because there's so many colors in those clouds and all sorts of textures. Dwayne shared a beautiful photo with us. So is that your backyard, Dwayne?
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's wonderful. You get to see that out your backyard every day.
Well, not every day.
Well, not every day.
This was
but
a
yeah.
rather unusual sunset.
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Kind of surreal.
Yeah. My Tuesday class, we did a sunset as well. So I wanted to kind of talk about that for a minute. I'm gonna pen myself. Hold on a second. Try not to blind everybody with the sunlight, but this is kind of an important. Okay. So, all right, so this is my photo reference. This was the football fields the kids were practicing for band and whatnot. So, but I loved the sky that night, so I wanted to make something of it. So just for a compositional sake, when we're looking at the photo of Dwayne's here, if you want more, you can add a bit of ground and just make up where the ground is. So I obviously took out things like the big light pole and bleachers and kids and whatnot. You know, we obviously don't need any of that. And I just made it a really simple grassy area, even though the trees in my photo are across New Road, like it's all distant. But I just wanted to make it so it was just a little bit more of a natural setting, nothing. It could be an actual painting and not just a study of the sky was pretty much what I was going for. So today can be for you a study of the sky in the painting and playing with clouds and all that kind of good stuff, or it could be an actual painting with a nicer composition. So just take a minute and think about how you want to do that. When I switch my cameras, I'll do that in just a second. The piece of paper that I have up there is another random sheet of paper, and I literally have it measured. It's 9.5 by 16. Not a clue why I have such a size of paper, but I do. So that's what I'm working on today. So I will be putting a little bit of groundwork in there. And if I like it, I can frame it. If I don't, I can just use it as a study. There's a lot of information we have going on in the sky and lots of those little nuances with those goldeny yellows and the pattern of the clouds, that kind of fish scale look up off into the top left. So we're going to take our time. It's going to be a little challenging to get those nuances in there, but we'll be fine. So while I'm switching cameras, take a minute. If you want to do any quick thumbnails, please do so. This is the perfect time for it. And I'm going to pause the recording for just a second because make sure my camera sets up properly. So just think about your composition and what you want to do. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want me to look at with regards to your composition, or do you just want to get going? Everybody good?
I think we're ready to go.
All right, let's just get it going then. I say that and then I don't have a pencil. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna add like a hint maybe of kind of a grassy area, and I'm just making it not a straight line. So I can have that little variation that the photo references have. And if I want to peek, you know, I can see a little bit of a house rooftop in the center there, just above the sun. I can put that in there too and have it make sense. So just, I am gonna have like a little bit of a grassy section in there. I do like these taller trees. Get that quickly sketched. If I put the house in there, I can put that in later. I don't have to worry about drawing it now. It doesn't have to be anything. Huh?
I'm sorry, I was just saying something to Joe.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I put my thing on mute.
Okay. So now that I have some of the trees in there, I'm just gonna take a minute to look at the tree skyline itself. I don't want just trees in a row or something like that. So I just want to make sure that it's interesting and not that it makes sense. So I might bring this one up a little bit, although that creates a lot of weird symmetry. So I'm gonna have to look at that for just a second. So I'm thinking about too, that initial line that I put in there, does it make sense that I had the line coming forward? If the trees look like they're getting smaller, maybe my line should kind of go into the distance, kind of a thing. This is the trouble when you start to make things up. You really have to take your time to think about how that's going to go off into space. You know what? I think I'm going to keep it. I'll just change the shape a little bit over here. All right, that's okay. I'm not doing any other drawing in the sky. The clouds that are there, they all sort of gently touch the lavenders and the bright pinks and the yellows and the blues. Nothing is one big solid cloud. I think there is a bit of a kind of a front here, but it doesn't read as like a massive heavy cloud like we did in our one cloud class, where it was just a big heavy storm front. So we don't have that. So I'm not drawing it. Okay. So for the first part, so now we have the whole concept of what to paint first, how to paint it. And what I'm most concerned about overall in this painting would be where the trees touch the sky. We've all made messes of the tree line up against the sky, especially when there are lighter colors in the sky. So I'm going to focus on the sky first. I will be pushing down into the tree line itself and have a little bit of an overlap when it comes to the colors going down into the trees. So I'll lose a lot of my lines, but that's where I'm going to start. So the way my photo printed, I see a lot of lavenders and purples. I'm going to keep that. I kind of like that. And then I'll pop in the brightness. Now we know that yellow needs its own tooth. So we have to make some determinations as to how yellow the yellow is, and where we want to put it. Now, to me, in this scenario, when I had this photo from class on Tuesday, we had the bright sun and then the very specific yellow up into the sky. So that is what my definition of, I need that yellow to have its own place. And our photo reference for today, it's all kind of a soft goldeny, orangey glow. So I think I'm okay with layering. I don't know that much needs its own tooth, except for I will put the little ball of light in the middle. And I'm gonna go with kind of a pinkish light. And I'll start it off a little bigger than it is in the photo, only because I know I'm gonna probably mess up on the edges and I'll have to push into it a little bit. That's a little bit dull. Add some brightness to it. So I don't think any of you have ever seen me start with something with that particular spot. Normally I would put something else completely in there. This is just a little bit of yellow. All right, so now I'm gonna find the lavenders that I want. And this is always a bit of a trick too, to find the right lavenders. You don't want it to go too dark or too light. So there's definitely going to be some layering. Taking a little test swipe. That's pretty purple. So I'm just going to put a little layer of it. Start there. Paying attention to the shadow shapes and the movement of, not shadow shapes, but the cloud shapes and the shapes of that, it makes it how it's moving. And at some point it kind of turns into more of a blue than a purple, which is fine. So this is just one shade lighter, but I'm going to keep it in there. Let's see. And as usual, I'm going to be looking for those, for the peachy pinks and those rosy reds and those salmony oranges and those golden colors. Look towards something you might use in a portrait. Look for those skin tones, the shadows of the skin tones. That one's pretty dark, but there is that really dark glow down in here. So I'm gonna just notch it in there. That's a bit bold. I'll probably regret that later, but let's just go with it for now. Just being a little more careful going around my sun. Just getting all that darkness down so that I know that when I work into the lighter, it'll have that little bit of glow on it. This is a little more pink, not quite a huge fan of it. So now I'm going to look at let's see how bright this orange is. It's a bit much, but I'm going to put it down throughout this transition so that when I layer those lighter colors on top, we'll have a better place to go. So this is all quite, I guess the only word I can think of really is garish. It's just really kind of over the top, which is fine. Kind of what we want. This is one of those blue greens that I would use in ocean water. I'm going to get a little bit of that in there. Not a lot, because the green will overtake things before you know it. And then you'll have too much green in your sky. It's all a part of looking for that perfect gray blue, which is what I might have found. This is a Jack Richardson, so it's really, especially as the first layer of color, it's very soft and leaves a lot on the tooth. I'm putting the majority of this down now because it is soft, and I'll be putting the lighter colors on top of that soon enough. Let's get some blue in there. I always go back and forth. As I look at my painting, and then I go back and I look at my trays of pastel, and I was like, you think you know exactly what you're going for, and then you turn around and you look at your trays, and it's like, nope, that wasn't it. Going back and forth and back and forth. All right, so this is a little more of a gray lavender, which I'm using because once I start to move some of that brightness over, it'll kind of thing. The camera is really picking up the orange, the more of the orange tones on here. So I'm gonna find some more of those rosy reds to work with. There we go. All right. Okay. I'm going to take a second and take some pipe insulation and settle everything out. I've got a lot of dark in there. I want it to just kind of sink into the tooth so I can begin my gentle layering process. It's going to be a little tedious today, so take your time. Don't try to slop it in there too fast, because you will pile it up a little too fast. It's not, when we do the stormy sky exercise and we just keep piling in, and getting it all nice and heavy, we don't want to go too heavy and too thick too fast. These are, just think of gentle layers. So very soft touch as we build up into the glowing light of those golden clouds. That one was done. It was a little piece, so. I thought it would be smart to use smaller pieces of pipe insulation, and I was wrong. It's so hard to grasp. It's starting to take some shape and not be too crazy. Now, the other day I didn't do any of the trees until I had the entire sky situated. I think I'm going to stick with that today, and work on getting treetops up into the sky versus digging the sky into the treetops. There will be spots where, of course, I'm going to make sky holes, but for right now, I think I'm just going to really focus on the nuances of the sky. So I'm taking a minute and I'm going to pull some sticks that I'm thinking of using to get into the brighter tones of things. This was this really bright kind of goldeny color. I think I want a little bit more of it. It's not, I know it's a lot darker than what's happening there, but I think I want to use it as the foundation for those lighter values so it can kind of sit and glow with it and enhance it versus be a problem. So just a gentle, I'm not necessarily using the entire stick. I'm just using the tip of the stick flatly. I don't want any lines, but I just think it would kind of help identify. Now this has that really cool patterning. I'm gonna just try to give that impression without specifically drawing what's happening. So I'll be using, I'm sure, a paintbrush to help me with that kind of modeling in there. So very gently, I'm just letting it sit on the tooth of the paper. Actually, I kind of like it on screen. Okay, let's see. I am going to pull out a piece of test paper because these are the times when you look at your pastel and you think it's one color and you paint with it and it's completely different. And since we're trying to be careful with our gentle layers, you want to make sure you know what that color is going to do before you do it. So I'm going to set it off to here. So those all right, so that's a nice color. Let's see. There's not a lot of true yellow in this reference, so I don't have to worry about if the yellow is too lemony or if it's too white or too beigey. But now I am in the yellow family to get some of those glows to happen. So make sure your yellow doesn't have too much green or too much gray. as you're layering that in on top. All right, I think I am going to start with this one. All right, it's a lot lighter than I thought it was. Not exactly what I wanted. Doesn't look terrible, but I think I want something different first. So that was, I thought, dark enough, and it is not. So I need to find something a little bit darker. That is gross. Okay, that doesn't work. All right, so here's my test. This was the one I just used. This one's a nice step darker. So I'm going to test that with it. And it's still quite light. Now this is a Great American. So it's really, really soft. And it gets a little on the mushy side, so I just have to be careful with it. And in some places it looks a lot duller than what it is. So don't be afraid to come back with that darker color on top. And then the two together in those two little layers, now they're starting to get that little bit of a glow. And this orangey color is a Rembrandt, so it's a little harder. So it's just kind of moving around that Great American that I just put down. But it does just so that it kind of comes off down into here a little bit. I kind of have that. It's a scarlet. So this is a new pastel, and it's a bit of a scarlet red. Kind of like it for the underneath. I keep picking up sticks that are a little darker than I want them to be. So I am having a little bit of a challenge getting myself into the light properly. This one's a little more of a pumpkin-y orange. My variety of colors are the sticks that I have pulled, the collection's growing quickly. Some of these colors, when you start to test them, they look really vibrant when they're on their own, and then when they get next to something else, they just dull down into something really flat. So it gets a little frustrating because this color by itself is so rich, and then when I put it into the sky, it's really flattening, and that's not what I want. So if you're frustrated with your color choices, you are not alone. That's nice. I'm not worried so much about the exact edges just yet. As I build all of this color and structure is more important, and then I can kind of start to feather things out further. So this is a really small stick. Apparently I like it a lot because I have such a small piece of it left, but it's got just the right amount of yellow and orange. So if we think back to, which most of you took the sky, the clouds Zoom, if we think back, I'm just gently laying the color down on top of some of that bright goldeny orange that I put down before. And so the two of them are playing together. Nothing's really creating new clouds, but the colors are kind of morphing. And it's just gently sitting on top of that blue, not blending with the blue. I can add different colors to start mixing in. And even though I know that these clouds aren't going to be pink over here, that when I put that same yellow back on top, it's going to look a lot better than the yellow by itself. My paper is a little curled out, so that's affecting some of the markings. I like the color a lot better. The shape of the cloud ended up being a lot more solid than I want it to be, because that's where that kind of fish scale action is. So I can take my paintbrush and just kind of dab away at the pattern. So I'm gonna leave that sit for right now. It's not the exact pattern that's there, but it's getting there. But as usual, I don't want to completely finish a section when there's so much to be done. That's a good combo.
Are you appreciating this challenge?
Yes.
This one's a little tougher than I thought it would be.
It always is. It always looks like I have this plan. When I look at the picture, I have a plan. I always have a plan, and I think, oh great, I'm gonna grab these colors and these colors, and I'm gonna go, and it's gonna be great. And as I'm adding the colors, it's like, oh, that's not so great. That's not so great. So yeah, it's always more than you think it's gonna be. But that's good. That's all, you know. It's like a home improvement project. Never exactly what you thought it was gonna be.
So you're going more intense in color.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it to the light, and every time I add something, the light seems to be too light, so I have to
Darken it
keep
down.
adjusting. Yeah, so you know, I think I'll get into the light fully soon. I want to get up into the light, but I don't want it to be a dull light. I want it to be a glowing kind of a light, and to get that glow, I have to have that dark underneath for it to kind of glow. So that's what my fussing is all about this morning, is trying to get that glow. Well, that's a little too bright.
We're using a different paper today. We're using a Meton Touch.
Oh yeah.
Have you used that?
Yeah.
It's a lot different than the UArt.
Very different than the UArt.
I mean, it
Very,
grabs
very,
the
very.
pastel, but it also lets it go if you try to blend it.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to, it's almost like you have to be a little more confident in your marks.
Yes,
Because
yes,
you
I'm
can
finding
lose
that
them.
out.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys might have to incorporate some workable spray fix for your gentle layers.
Maybe, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, if you start to get frustrated, just get it out without.
Well, I was going through my papers to pick out, I had to cut some down, and then I realized I bought this a while ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, oh, why not give it a try?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always best to try it out in a situation where you're not necessarily painting something super serious, because you know, you don't know how it's going to act, and there's a whole learning curve.
So maybe this whole picture was a bad idea.
No, not at all. It's only 9:45. We have plenty of time to fuss with this.
When I saw this out in the sky, it was a few weeks ago, I thought, that's unreal.
Right? Monday night, it was funny because it was, I mean, I sent this out to everyone on Monday morning, and then Monday night the kids had a their Saturday band competition got canceled because of the weather.
Right.
Well, you sent me your storm clouds rolling in, so that's why. So our Saturday got canceled because of that. So we had to carpool the kids up because we couldn't get a bus at the last minute. So anyway, long story short, and once the kids got on the field, we're standing there waiting, and the sky just turned this. Let me see if I can show you. I took pictures of it. I was like, oh, I kind of want to paint that instead, but hold on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, oh, okay, so it's not going to focus on it, but it was
Oh,
just
that's good.
so pretty.
Is that the sun or a street light there?
This is the football field lights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the sun was
And somewhere back.
somewhere right in there behind the trees. So really pretty. I will be incorporating that sky into something. Okay. So I'm going to step back for a minute because I've been really close to it. I'm looking at it on camera. It's not bad on camera. It's not great. Long way to go. All this little, it's kind of like with any landscape. The more you look at the photo reference, the more you see. And I'm looking and seeing all these little like veining almost, I would call it. It's lacy kind of a veiny kind of a pattern for some of the clouds, which is really pretty. I also have to remember to look at some of my new pastels, the harder pastels for those gentle blending. So it might have a color that's a little more subtle and I can use. Let's see what this one does. I'm starting to get a little thick in here, which is the perfect time to incorporate something like a new pastel. So it'll kind of move around and blend a little bit what you already have, using what's there without making a really severe mark. So this is where that hard going on top of the soft, you can use it to your advantage. All right, so I'm looking at, well, on the camera, it's not too bad. The value scale between the blue lavenders, those little holes that are poking through. I don't want to get too light in the lavender there. It's so funny because this blue that I just put down to kind of emphasize some of those holes was the perfect gray blue before, and now it looks green up against those oranges. Going back in with some of that initial, that helps a lot. The initial lavender along with the blue is always a good combo to get that silvery blue kind of a color. Because blue by itself isn't right and purple by itself isn't right. So in the same value, the two combined make a really nice combo. It's too light. I'm trying to make sure that I move on to different areas of the sky instead of continuing to fuss over the same exact spot too much. Because we know how that goes. If you fuss over the same spot for too long, you'll lose your mind. But this way, if you move around, it might just all work itself out.
A couple times.
Yeah, Joe just said you lose your mind a couple times then.
Yeah, I'm coming close today. That's fine.
Sorry.
No, you are fine. This is perfect. It's a perfect challenge.
I'm gonna send you a photo of what I got so far,
Okay.
just for fun.
Give my brain a little break from mine.
You changed. Oh. Where did it go? Okay, that light.
Well, I did on some good news part of things. I entered an international competition in, I think it's out of Canada, but it was about children. They wanted paintings depicting children in everyday life, like now, kind of a thing. So I submitted 4 pieces and they accepted one. It's going to be online and printed in a book. So it's going to be exciting. I'll,
That's good. Congratulations.
thank you. It's probably a way for them just to make money selling a book, but that's fine. I'll buy the book.
So do you make money off of it?
I don't make money off of it, but it's a resume builder. So maybe, you know,
So in the long run, maybe.
yeah. That looks good, Dwayne. So yeah, the lavenders are looking nice. The blues in the sky you chose are really nice. That slate kind of gray blue is going well.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can see where the paper's doing what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I pretty much have to put the pastel down and leave it.
yeah, which is really difficult when it comes to something like what we're building here. It takes a lot more patience to get it built.
It just looks awfully light. I don't.
Well, this light.
I guess yours is-
Yeah, there is a lot of light in the sky, but though your lightest lights, you could like tone down a little bit with some of those like peachy pinks that we were talking about, but that's kind of where I'm at, trying to find the right value shift as it goes up. So I might need to jump into something super light and let them mix together to get there. I'm still pretty dark and you're pretty light, so we shall meet in between. Between the two of us, we'll get there.
So maybe between the two, we can come up with one decent picture.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I don't think I'm at your level. Not yet. Give me another 20 years.
Oh, that's kind of nice. That does nothing.
It looks
for it.
good. Yours looks light too.
Are we on Saturday?
I don't know. You have to check.
I can't see.
No.
I just sent you a copy of mine, Renee.
Okay. Yeah, something too. Yeah, so that's too dull. So that's the other thing when I'm, picking up colors, when you get those beigey yellows, peaches, then they're too bland. They don't have enough of a, just washes things out. It's like putting on the wrong color foundation. I like the patterns that you have going in the clouds. Like I can tell that there's like a big pattern as the whole movement of the clouds going. So that looks great.
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to make, there's a lot more radiating patterns that I've got. I've just got to connect some of the dark blotches to.
I think you could also benefit from a little bit of like a goldeny orange. I see a lot of pink, but
Yeah,
along with the pink, like don't remove anything, but along with the pink, if you can find
you mean
that
above,
nice goldeny orange, you'll benefit from that.
above the sun and heading
Yeah,
out?
into like that whole, like up into here. So you have a lot of pink up here at the top. So
Yeah,
if you could just add little bits of some goldeny yellow kind of colors, that would be good.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Golden yellow.
I know. It's so scientifically specific.
I think like peachy pink.
You mean scientifically vague,
Yes.
specifically vague. Not sure if I like this paper.
I had used it a couple of times. I had a pack of it. I never bought it again.
Well, I'm getting frustrated with the UART because it keeps curling and then it's hard to put the pastel on it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I am finding that UART just has to be mounted. Like right
Yeah.
now I have mine taped down. It's not mounted on anything, so I have that hump, you know.
Right. So I was just trying to look around for some other options.
Did you guys use more of that Lux archival again?
I do kind of like it. Joe
Mhm.
doesn't, but I do.
Okay.
Because you don't have to mount it. It's already kind of mounted for you.
Okay.
It's on thick enough paper.
It's like on a card stock, like a thick.
Yeah. The cardstock is a little heavier than the this touch.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of expensive if you have to keep mounting papers and buying, like you are on board. Especially
Yeah,
if-
to buy it mounted is really, I'm
I've been
still
mounting-
going with the 568 mounting adhesive onto acid-free foam core.
I've been buying the, who is it? Crescent makes a board. It's already, it has repositional glue on it.
Yeah, I think you guys gave me a piece
Did
of that
I?
one time.
That seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm doing. It's just, I'm doing all the steps, you know? Like
Right.
I'm mounting the adhesive myself first, you know?
What kind of board do you use?
I order from Uline and I just get an acid-free foam core. I don't use Gator board anymore. I did have a case of Gator board that I used. But Gator board is so hard. I didn't like painting on it as a surface. Like
Right.
it made the whole painting experience different than I wanted. So I went back to foam core. And I like it better.
I usually buy Elmer's foam core from Dick Blick. It's reasonably priced. I usually get a case of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly, yeah, I get the Elmer's and I get it from Uline in the case. And Uline, I think, is cheaper than Dick Blick. You should compare the next time you go to buy a case. Because Uline is more for, it's not an artist site, so
Right.
you know, whenever we get away from the word art, better for our budget. So I'm just right now, I'm taking just softly moving things around with some pipe insulation, just softening some of it, maybe like blending a little bit of it, just a gentle kind of movement. Get rid of some of the harder edges that I had created. Gives a little bit of a feathering in some locations. Because this one, I mean, the photo reference, everything is relatively soft. There's not many hard edges except for the sun itself. So within the clouds, there's not a lot of hard reflections or highlights, so to speak. So that's not bad. I still need to get some more light in places. And it might be time. I'm going to do a little bit more light up top. And then it might be time to just to go ahead and get some trees going, because this is a sky without any references to, you know, what exactly we're looking at. So I think I'm going to try and get some light into the sky, a little bit more light up top. I like the overall undercolor, but there's just a couple places I think could use some light. And then work on some trees, so I don't go crazy, right? Still feel like that could go up. So this is where the brands really come into play. Like I always pick up this stick and I feel like it should be a Ludwig, but it doesn't do what a Ludwig would do. It's not too hard and it's not too soft, but it just doesn't want to layer. That is way too light. And then the more I look at the picture, I kind of convince myself, well, maybe I don't need to go any lighter. So this pastel is too light on its own. This is a super pale yellow. So I'll layer it. I'm going to put a little bit of that peachy color back on top with it. That's better. It's not good. Don't forget you just tap your finger to get rid of some rough edges if you want. Instead of trying to blend something, to give it a little tap. That's not bad. I hear other dogs barking, so just be prepared. Kaiser might start. If he does, I will mute. All right. I think I'm gonna start on the trees. It's 10 after 10. So if you haven't taken a break, clear your eyes for a minute. I'm gonna pause the recording. So I'm gonna clear my own eyes for a minute and walk away. And then when I come back in 5 minutes, we'll start on the trees. So as I came back into the room, I really liked how the top veining and lacing kind of is looking right now. But this little blobby section is kind of standing out. Not quite the way I want it to. So there's some subtle layering I think that needs to happen before I move on. And I think it just has to do with getting some of those scarlety kind of colors layered in, and not necessarily on their own, but just kind of a gentle hint of their existence among the lavender. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut that edge off because the way the a little bit of that hump from the paper. So I know I'm going to be working on the trees next. So I'm just adding some gentle colors down into where the trees are going to go. So I'm probably doing a little more than what's actually there. That's all right. Some of these bright colors. Oh, that's bright. Maybe not that bright. Okay, so now that I'm going back into the trees, or into the trees for the first time, I should say, the photograph shows really nicely some of the colors in the trees. When we have sunset photos and sunrise photos, a lot of times everything else besides the sky gets blurbed off into just a big shadowy silhouette. And you can go with that for sure. But I always want to add a little bit of light into the trees and the ground just to give it a little more life. I don't want to just have that black contrast, which I've done that before and then wondered why it didn't look so real after the fact. I used to do that because I was just going straight from a photo reference, not having really taken the time to observe what was really happening outside. So it's one of those things you just got to keep reminding yourself as you're taking your photo references to observe what colors you truly see. Okay. So as always, I'm going with my darkest darks first, and everything is in silhouette. So my darks are going to be probably a little darker than usual. Because I can't see the bases of the trees, I'm going to kind of be making up the bases of the trees. Probably getting a couple of different types of, it's not quite, this one isn't eggplant. I know it looks like it. This one's eggplant, which you still can't really tell. So I'm going to use a combination of the eggplant and then a one of the deep red violets as well. Just because when you're at this stage, when we have this kind of red light glowing in the sky, it's not necessarily so so deep and dark. It can have a little bit of that redness to it. I'm staying away from the exact skyline for a minute. I'll get there soon. That was a little too brown. I was throwing some green in there, but it was a little too brown. That's probably not the green I want either. Work on that. Nope. Nope. So that's it. So now I'm making things up, and I always get into a little bit of trouble when I'm making things up. I'm pretending I know what that grass looks like, and I don't. So that's always fun. I'm going to take a little bit of pipe insulation and just kind of set those shadow shapes in, so I can build up around it without fighting the tooth too terribly much. And I can start to inch it a little closer once the pipe insulation has a little bit of pigment on it. I can just start to inch closer into the sky. Ooh, I just kind of made something there. Let me see. So I kind of just moved everything around a little bit. But when I did that, I kind of left myself a little opening for like a pathway. It kind of goes off in. And when you do things like that, you can add little bits of color down onto the ground. Like the sun's kind of peeking through. For instance, last week's one, I'll reference that again real fast. So there's kind of like a deeper red glow right around the edges of the trees. So you can certainly incorporate that, because where we have in our reference, the sun has that bright red kind of peak there. So we can certainly incorporate some of those deeper colors there. And see how much different the sky already looks now that I threw in some general shapes of the trees. It's kind of completely different now. I'm going to build up for a minute. So I just started to mark in some greens over here with the trees. You don't really notice it on camera. The values are really similar, but you kind of need that. Again, since I'm kind of making things up a little bit. Trying to be a little more careful. Trying to be loose and specific all at the same time is quite a challenge. So we'll get some of that. Let's do scarlet. Deep kind of rosy reflection. So I'm certainly taking some liberties here. I'm adding a lot of reds into the trees themselves, where I think I could make that work. So this is a deeper value red than anything that's in the sky, but since it's sitting on trees, we go from there. Let's take some of that. This looks really, this is in person, this is much more purple and lavender and gray. And on camera, it's very blue. So I have to think. Tone it down a little bit, but that's making it brighter, isn't it? Yes, it is. That's all right. So now I can start to kind of carve in some sky holes. Dwayne, yours just came through. I'll take a look at that now. Good. I think you're also ready for some trees just to see where it goes. Have you tried breaking up any of it with a paintbrush, like the top portions where we're trying to get that kind of fish scale look?
A little bit. I was using a hake brush because it's really soft,
Uh-huh.
but this paper just knocks so much pastel off.
Okay.
So I've been kind of like little hesitant to do a whole lot of that. And
Yeah.
I did start the trees.
Okay, good. Two, maybe test out some hard pastel or pastel pencil in the sky to try and get those shapes into. Maybe that'll help with this paper. I'm not
That's a
sure,
good idea.
but maybe. Okay.
Well, I only had one sheet of paper. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you won't have to suffer too long with it then, right?
No, I didn't buy a whole lot of it. I just wanted to try it.
Yeah. Always worth a try.
Yeah, I bought a couple sheets of like Pastel Matte and Pastel Premier, and there's another one.
Yeah. They say that Pastel Premier is supposed to be the most like Kitty Wallace paper. I disagree.
It's not
just-
standard.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly that is nowhere near like Kitty Wallace paper. But
Have you used Tim Fisher?
no, I have not. I've never even heard of that.
Nor have I, but a lot of the Europeans apparently use it.
Ah,
You can get it from Jackson, I know.
okay. Yeah, they're out of Europe.
They have a facility in the United States now,
Ah, okay.
past year. And I might try a sheet of that at one point.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of shaping the trees a little bit. So this takes a few steps when we're shaping the sky holes and making patterns. So it takes multiple layers of color to get the sky holes to be natural. So especially in a sunrise sunset, because there are so many colors in so many locations. It's not ever, almost never, one particular color. All sorts of colors happening. Sometimes you have the pink, sometimes you have a turquoise, sometimes, you know. So I like to kind of set them in place with one color and then add on top as we go. And then think about we've talked about this before with the sky. Think about how far away your trees are. So is it a feathered edge where we're just doing that inside C? If you guys remember that, we would take the pastel and just set it down on the paper and then give it the C so that it gently fades off? Or is it a more specific branch that you see and you need something, oops, that's dirty, a little more specific? So just think about that as you're making your sky holes and dealing with your skyline here, your tree line, how you want that to work. Hold on, Kaiser. Take a step back if you need to. We have a little less than an hour left, so now's the time for fussing and whatnot.
We're probably gonna need every minute of that.
Yes, I'm feeling that as well. It's okay. It's all good. I'm going to make my sun a little bit smaller. It's just such a bright dot in the middle. I just want to. So we have in the backyard, we have moles digging up all sorts of tunnels in my yard. And Kaiser got a hold of one of them the other day, which was weird because they were out of their holes. They were just in the grass. I had never seen one up close. They're disgusting.
We had that at one point. We went to the garden center to ask the guy what we could do about it. And he says, well, do you really want to kill them? I said, not necessarily. I said, just want them to go to somebody else's.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what you do is, he says, you put sulfur in the holes.
Sulfur?
Sulfur.
Okay.
So he sold us, I don't know, I think I bought a pound of sulfur. He said, so you don't need that much. He says, just buy a little bit. And I said, no, give me a pound. I got a lot of moles and a lot of holes. Well, I put the sulfur in the ground, in the holes, and then I tamped it over with some dirt. The next morning, got up and it looked like a volcano. There were like these huge molehills all over the yard.
Oh, God.
It was a mess.
And we still had moles.
And
Yeah,
you
we
still have mole. Okay.
still had the moles. I think I'm getting too finicky with these trees. But I kind of like them.
So I gotta fix. I have too much of a line here in my made up trees. So I gotta get rid of something. Oh, it looks like I had added too much. Hold on. As I'm brushing away. Let's see. So the more I look at my screen and the more I look at the colors, this is always the frustration I have with taking photographs of my sunrises and sunset paintings is it's just not the same color. The yellows aren't so yellow. Like this in here looks like a really crazy, I don't know, like pumpkin-y orange, and it's a subtle color. It's not quite like that. All right, I'm gonna step far back and see what I think. So I did mention the house. I think I'm gonna leave the house out. I don't think I'm gonna put it in there. And I think I'm gonna get rid of this tree. Bye bye tree. Yeah, it's a little better overall for composition. So now I have to finesse that a little bit into place. So it's a little solid right now, but just adjusting my tree line shapes just to give some more, oopsies, dimension.
I just sent you a picture of mine, Renee, with the trees and grass.
Okay. Oh, nice. The trees made such a huge difference, and the texture of the paper really works for those nice it gives you the appearance of sky holes without putting in sky holes. You know, you can run the pastel over top. That looks wonderful. I like that a lot. If you want to keep pushing, you can put some of the red in the trees like I did. If you don't want to, you don't have to, because either way is certainly correct. What else were you going to do with it? Where do you want to go next? Okay. That's super bright. That's kind of good. So I'm adding even a brighter red. In places. Oopsie. It can be so easy to get carried away and just keep going up into the sky with your trees and your branches and such. I'm kind of going with the softer effect for the trees and not so specific on the skyline. Just a little soft in the touch, not as, you know, the photograph, everything is crisp, like especially on the right. The shapes of the trees and the branches are really quite specific. And I'm just taking the easy way out, kind of taking the approach of just softening things over a little bit. I don't need the viewer to know what type of tree it is or anything like that. They can just know that there's some foliage there and use their own imagination. I'm going to step back for a minute, see what I've got. I'm gonna kind of poke at this little, almost so you can't really tell what's a tree and what's a cloud. I don't know. I guess too, this is another part where you have to decide what's the star of the show, the trees or the sky. And so in making that decision, you kind of know where to put your emphasis. So if I want to, I mean, I can throw in maybe a little bit of orange. Just a touch. Nothing exciting because I don't think I want to have too much attention on the ground in front. I do kind of like how that's a, a pathway just kind of emerged. All right, that's it. New pastel. Let's see. I do think my trees need a few more sky holes in them. I'm going to go with a little bit more of that. So on this side, there's a lot of that subtle kind of blue on the right side. So I'm going to stick with that for a little bit. But I'm not going to go crazy with them. I just want a couple of hints of light breaking through. And this is where I get myself into trouble and make little patterns that I didn't want. Ooh, we got right about a half hour left. Here I am still fussing along.
Everybody else is quiet today.
I know. I was just about to ask people how they were doing. That is the one of the disadvantages of Zoom is the the feel of the classroom is always different. Trying to, or we're just all working so hard.
Short hair. Keep losing my colors. And the right from me, I just don't see them. Oh.
Did she say anything about the next class?
January.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Hmm. I'm probably gonna have to stop fussing and messing in just a minute here and let mine sit for a bit. That's what happens when I start to try to make things up. I'm gonna stop the recording now because I don't think I'm gonna work anymore on mine. I'm gonna let it sit. I'll stop the recording. And if I do more to it, I'll send it out to everyone. But I think this is where I'm gonna leave it be for today.